sometimes it's very, very much led by the director. You've worked with the director before, and he or she will contact you and maybe let you know what they're doing, send a script, see if you're interested or if you have any ideas. Sometimes the director doesn't know me, but the DP's worked with me before, so there's a conversation there. Sometimes a producer will lead that conversation because perhaps they feel that I might have a sensibility for that particular project, and even if the DP and the director haven't worked with me before, the producer may have and may say, well, actually, they worked with me before and put me forward because they think I have that sort of sensibility that might be good for the project. So it kind of does come from, it comes from all different places, really. Obviously, one reads the script and so you can understand what the story is about. But then it's really trying to, again, elicit that sort of emotional language about, well, what do you want this to feel like? And there is no real vocabulary with colour as such. People will use words like, you know, rich or um, visceral or honest or expensive, you know, and you kind of have to try and pick apart what those things mean. So you can do that by obviously getting people to send references of things they like and things they don't like. And that's why when you work with somebody a few times, you start to get used to their taste and they start to get used to yours, and you start to understand, that's what they mean when they say that. Or, but it's a very instinctive relationship, really, and it just really comes through talking, and trying to work out what their taste is. It is by far more beneficial to get a colorist or certain post-production involved as early as you can. And some productions are really good. I mean, I've just hopefully become attached to a project which is still very, very early on in prep. And so I'm able to read the scripts, look at the design boards, um, speak to people about the technical aspects, design the color pipeline. But some people don't have all of that set up before they start, and some things are greenlit very late, and so you won't get involved until a bit later on, and that's also fine. But what's interesting, I think, about the way technology is now sort of shaping up is that projects are now have a very broad sort of life. They have a broad delivery. So you might be shooting for an HDR delivery, with an SDR delivery, with a pan and scan. Perhaps there'll be a cinema or a kind of theatrical element to it. So you have to, so as soon as you can get a post house on board, you can kind of set it up, which makes the pipeline for all of those deliveries very easy. If you leave it till the last minute, it's a lot harder. I mean, you can still do it, but it's just a lot harder to kind of tie up all of those threads, really. So I think people are realizing that actually getting the post house on board earlier is very advantageous, and it's certainly advantageous for me because if you think about it, the creative team are constantly talking about the look and the feel, um, and it's if I'm part of that, then I can also have some input into that. I think actually the whole streaming model really probably came and saved television, because I think people were sort of losing interest and sort of moving more into the internet and different different ways to view content. And I think the whole streaming model really was a shot in the arm, actually, for drama. And I think it's wonderful that you now have really good quality, high budget drama now, over 10 episodes 5 seasons, you can really start to delve into story, and you can really get to know characters, and we sort of consume drama as we do book as we used to do books, where we can live in one world with the kind of box set model. We can actually sort of live in a world for a while, and sort of stay with that one story. And I think that really has changed the way people enjoy content and enjoy television. So yeah, it's a wonderful time. I think the colorist role has become more important for lots of reasons. I think one, that there is a real, because we're consuming things as box sets. There's a real need for consistency, because I think there's nothing worse than trying to immerse yourself into a world and it being inconsistent from one director or one creative team to the next. So there is a definite need for that. And also for series identity, I think is very crucial, that people understand, the way humans kind of process data. We've got so much data, and the way that we process that is to be quite general. So we make generalizations about things. And so I think when we're sort of flicking through all of the content, we very much need visual cues and clues to tell us what we're watching, and are we and to kind of grab our interest. So I think the way things look is very key to that, in terms of brand identity. The look of something is, in a way, it's like visual music, in a way, in the way that music can sort of very subtly manipulate the way you feel, your emotional response to something. I think color also does that. So I think if you are wanting to tell somebody a story about something, you need to kind of give them emotional cues, in a way, if you want them to follow a narrative. And you can use color and density and the look of something in order to do that. You can sort of, in the same way that music modulates, I think color modulates in exactly the same way. So really, when you give something a look, you are really just trying to help the viewer navigate the the kind of a narrative, really. I always do equate it to music, because I think those two things are, I think color and music are sort of hidden. Then they're not overt, but yet they're very, very powerful in the way they make you feel. So they're not necessarily conscious processes, but they are emotional. And I think all of the time when you're telling a story, you're wanting people to be emotionally connected to it. Either you want them to understand the character or the character's story or journey. Um, you're either wanting people to be on the outside looking at that, or you want them to be on the inside feeling that. And so I think grading um, does help that in the way that music does. I think if you look at something like uh, the Queen's Gambit, that has a very recognizable look. And I think if you had something like Chernobyl, for instance, which also has an amazingly visceral, beautiful look. But I think if you tried to make either of those two, if you tried to swap over the looks of those two things, you'd have a very different program. You'd have a very different response. So I think that sort of shows the power of grading, in a way, of being able to tell, of being able to very quickly put you into a world. There might be a situation where a character is hiding something, for instance. Um, and so you may want to bring some shadow into their shots or into their world, in a very sort of subliminal way. Or you might want to kind of hide them a little in some way. Um, so that would be something that you might do in a grade. You might actually just bring a darkness into their world or into their shot. Um, Sometimes you might want to slightly subvert their color. So rather than a kind of bright, sunny sunshine yellow, you might want to bring a slightly sick yellow into that. If you're trying to convey that that it might not be a trustworthy situation, you may want to do entirely the opposite to that. You may want to convey a very trustworthy situation, and so you may create an amazing sunshine, and be able to fool the emotions that it's. So there's all kinds of ways that you can use light and dark and color. Color grading it's a thing of two halves, really. So the first bit of it is about things that are not shot sequentially, things that are maybe shot on different cameras, different lenses at different times. So part of my job is making all of that fit together, sort of like a jigsaw puzzle, really, just putting all the pieces together and making them look as if everything is sort of sequential. So that is the more sort of technical side of the job. Um, but the more creative side of the job is obviously this look that we were talking about earlier, about trying to kind of guide people through the narrative using color cues, if you like. Um, so I suppose it's a bit of both. Although I always feel that the director and the DOP are really the artistic geniuses, and I, I'm literally just sprinkling a little stuff on the top to make it look nice. So I couldn't really call myself an artist, but I certainly hope I help the process anyway. Some colorists have a very definite style. Um, I don't really feel I have a definite style. I try not to. I try to be much more in the service of the project. But I do think that you have to use your own judgment, and you have to yeah. And I think people expect you to offer up ideas or offer up ways, because you're an interface between somebody's ideas and this huge machine of ones and noughts. And I think you have to be able to say, oh well, you can do, you have to kind of remove all of the technology, and just try to make it a kind of an area of ideas. People also now really expect things to look very extraordinary. I think, and actually there's a real move, I think, to also strip all of that away and make things look incredibly natural, because I think we've had so much of that filtered kind of look. And I think people are realizing that sometimes that actually gets in the way of the emotional response if it becomes too overt. So I think there's a sort of a pendulum swing. There is always that balance between things that look extraordinary but take you out of the story, and things that really help to embed the story. They definitely do run through trends, but actually, I think I think now there's so many interesting stories that are being told, and I think as usual we are slightly obsessed with the past. So I think the trend I see is about trying to tell the past in a very truthful way. So whereas uh, before we might have kind of slightly clumsily made something look like it was shot in the 80s or something shot in the 70s, I think now there's a real move to really, really emulate those looks, emulate those cameras, the stock, the processes, so that it actually looks very, very truthful. And I think you see that through projects, especially if they contain archive, that you're now hard pushed to see what's archive and what's real. So I think there's people are really wanting a real honesty, actually, in what they're portraying. They want the stories to be very authentic. So I think that is, and obviously we now have technology that can really do that and really help that. It is interesting that we had always, there'd often been an element of working remotely, or file sharing, and coming back with but what became what became a bit more important was that with not being able to be in the same room, that we were missing out on the sort of immediate collaboration side of things. So we that has changed. We now do a lot more actual remote collaboration, actually, which I mean, I'm actually astonished. I mean, I'm astonished at how well it works, and I'm also astonished with how quickly everyone just got on board with it. Because I thought there might be some real resistance in that, but actually, it's proven to be a really, really interesting and effective way of working. Actually, what we're able to do now is actually live stream the grade so people can see exactly what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Um, you know, at high resolution. Um, there are some caveats to that in that it is quite important to get everybody looking at things in the same device if possible. Excuse me, the same sort of device. But we can certainly, to a certain extent, make sure that everybody's calibration is similar, and then people can literally log in and look see what you're doing. And we typically have a Zoom conference going. You don't have to, but you can. So we can actually all talk to each other as if we were all in the same room. And somebody can make a comment or want a note, and we can do it and get the same sort of feedback as we would if they were in the room. Which has actually meant that more people can be involved, and more people have wanted to be involved. Um, there's slightly less trying to arrange people's diaries when they're free, when they can get into town. Now it's much more of a thing of, well, everyone's at home, or we can find a time when everyone can be involved. Um, so it's actually working very well. Well, at the moment, what we're doing is, we're asking if DPs want to do a final confidence check. They can come into the facility. They can't. We can At the moment we can't sit in the same room, but we're able to offer an identical room for them to see. So that at least we're both looking at the same technology, the same viewing technology, and that's been working very well. I think DPs kind of need that confidence. I think other creatives possibly not so much, because they can make that calibration. When you think about it, we're now looking at consuming content on a plethora of different devices now. If it's not your laptop or your iPhone or your iPad, your TV. So I think we are getting much more used to being able to view things and have confidence in things in different viewing platforms. So I don't think it's the huge problem that it was. If you have that and you have confidence in your colorist, um, and you know that your DP is going to get a final check on a professional monitor, then that's how it's been working, really, and it's been working really well. I've done lots of working from home, using the ClearView Flex with reviewing stuff with clients, and just looking at stuff, and making notes. So it's been a great way to, unless I'm actually grading, then I'm home. I'm working from home. I'm loving it, actually. It just gives you another way to be productive. I wouldn't say you work less, but it's definitely a better balance. And I think you can find a time that suits everybody, which is nice. You're not so confined to time. And actually, it's really human to be able to talk to your director, and suddenly there's a room full of kids or dogs, or it actually makes the whole process really quite human.